He wasn't just a singer, he was a presence. The kind of man who walked on stage and made you forget to breathe. The kind of voice that didn't just resonate in the hall, it reached straight into your chest. Dmitri Hvorostovsky changed opera, not just with his glorious baritone, rich, silver-lined and sensual, but with something harder to define: star power, stillness, depth, beauty. He was the last of a kind, and maybe the beginning of a new one. I'm often asked, constantly asked in fact, to make more videos about Dmitri. Maybe because I knew him a little, maybe because people feel that connection, or maybe just because he is so deeply, universally loved. And I'm more than happy to oblige. So here I am with a new tribute. In this video, I want to explore what made Dmitri Hvorostovsky more than a great voice. I want to talk about how he transcended opera, about the sensuality in his singing, the dignity in his presence, the way he drew people into a world they didn't even know they needed until he sang. Dmitri knew he was handsome. Oh, he absolutely knew. I remember standing backstage with him at Covent Garden, where the rehearsal spaces are lined with mirrors, floor to ceiling, from all the ballet use. It suited him perfectly. He'd glide past one and then stop, turn, and have a little moment, smoothing out that famous silver hair, adjusting his collar, checking his profile. And then he'd flash that sideways smile as if to say, "Still got it." It wasn't vanity, it was theatre. It was knowing your effect and enjoying it. Just enough to let others enjoy it too. But beyond the image, what I remember most is how warm he was. In daily life, he was one of the most loving, generous and grounded people I've ever worked with. He adored his family, spoke about his children with so much affection, love and pride. He could have been aloof or untouchable, but he never was. He had time for everyone. That combination, movie star looks, effortless magnetism and deep kindness, is incredibly rare. And it's why he managed to bring so many people into opera who might never have listened otherwise. He made opera feel accessible, exciting, sexy. You'd see it in the audience, people leaning forward, completely caught in his spell, because Dmitri wasn't just a voice, he was a reason to care, a star in the truest sense, one of the last opera singers who truly transcended the art form, who made it shimmer with glamour and soul. I love making these videos and exploring the lives of our greatest singers, but there's nobody quite like Dmitri. If you'd like to see me make more, and I have so much more to share, maybe consider buying me a coffee. The link's down below and it really helps keep me going. But if not, a like, a sub, a comment or a share means the world too. Thank you. There's no delicate way to put this, so let's just say it plainly. Dmitri Hvorostovsky sang like a man in love. With the music, with the story, with the person standing opposite him. Sometimes it felt like he was singing directly to you. There was a sensuality in his tone, rich, smoky, slow burning. It wasn't just beautiful, it was physical. You could feel it in your chest, in your spine. That dark baritone, so smooth on the surface, yet with fire underneath. It wasn't just well-produced singing, it was seduction. But never cheap, never hammy. It wasn't just about acting sexy. It was about feeling something so deeply that you couldn't help but lean in. Watch him in the Tchaikovsky arias, especially "Ja was Lublю" from Queen of Spades. The tenderness, the tension, the ache. It's sensual, yes, but also full of longing. Or go find his 1990s performance of Per me giunto, or Caro ascolta from Don Carlo. The pain, the nobility, the buried passion. It's all there. You don't need to know the words. You get it. And of course, there's Cortigiani from Rigoletto. That's a lesson in vocal intensity, in emotional pleading. He's on his knees and yet somehow still in complete control. These aren't just performances, they're experiences. YouTube is full of them. And what's extraordinary is that they still work, even through a screen years later. That same sensual charge, that emotional current, it's all intact. He wasn't afraid to be vulnerable. He wasn't afraid to sing with heat. In a world where male singers are often encouraged to be stoic or polite, Dmitri dared to be physical. He sang with his whole body, his whole being, and you felt it. You still do. There was something about Dmitri Hvorostovsky's smile that went beyond charm, beyond charisma. It was not just the smile of a handsome man, it was a phenomenon, an event. When Dmitri smiled, it wasn't just his mouth, it was his whole being. His face would light up from within, and his eyes quite literally would sparkle. Not metaphorically, literally sparkle. You could see the glint of light and joy dance in them. And if you were lucky enough to be nearby, you'd feel it too. You'd be caught in it. He had a way of holding that smile, not like the rest of us who flick the corners of our mouths upwards and then retreat back into the drudgery of neutral expression. Dima held it. He inhabited the smile. He'd speak through it, lean towards you with it, and somehow warm your soul with nothing more than his face and presence. It was disarming, it was bewitching. There was a kind of aura around him, an invisible glow that seemed to radiate from someplace beyond the ordinary. And yes, I know I'm straying into dangerous fanboy territory here, but to be near him was truly magical, almost spiritual. He knew he had been blessed. You could see it in the way he carried himself, not with the crude arrogance of entitlement, but with the grace of someone who had made peace with his destiny. Someone who wore his gift from God like a crown, but never used it to diminish others. I realize I only knew him during a happy chapter of his life. There are interviews when he looks heavier, with sadness, tired from personal pain. After his first marriage ended, you could sometimes hear that sorrow in his voice, see it behind his eyes. But during the time I knew him, brief as it was, he was radiance himself. He was life and joy and light and music. And that smile, oh, that smile was the gateway to it all. Dmitri's voice wasn't the greatest in terms of volume, but he didn't need brute force. What he had was presence. That silvery thread of tone, focused, alive, alert, cut through the orchestra, not with size, but with emotional gravity, and most of all, with breath. He was famous for his breath control. He could spin a line with endless poise, and yet he was often criticized, unfairly, for the sound of his in-breath. You could hear it, and some called that a flaw. But they were wrong. Because in Dmitri's case, the breath was part of the phrase. It was a physical, human prelude to the emotion that followed. You could hear the breath, and then you felt the heartbreak, or the seduction, or the defiance. That inhalation wasn't just technical, it was theatrical, emulsion, human, and on a technical level, it actually echoed the principles taught by Cornelia van Zanten, a famous 19th century vocal pedagogue who believed that the larynx should begin to lower on inhalation, preparing the whole vocal tract for phonation and with ease and readiness. You can see this in Dmitri's body. Go back to his early performances. Cardiff Singer of the World, 1989. He had a slim neck, an elegant line. But over time, as he built a career singing demanding repertoire night after night, you see a transformation. The sternocleidomastoid muscles, the SCMs, become more prominent. That's not tension, that's training. Those muscles engage on every deep, silent inhale, helping stabilize the larynx, expand the ribcage, and support the immense breath control required for roles like Rigoletto, Renato, or Prince Yeletsky. His larynx settled deeper, the tone darkened, and the voice gained weight and color, but never lost its ring. This is what happens to great singers when they sing correctly over decades. I remember Midela Freni, whose voice, like Dmitri's, darkened and deepened as she aged. And when people asked her why, she said, "Because I always sang correctly." That was Dmitri too. He evolved with grace, with discipline, and with honesty. Because at the heart of it all, he never tried to protect himself emotionally. He offered us the whole man, body, breath, and soul. Dmitri is gone, but his presence hasn't faded. In fact, I'd argue it's grown. Go on YouTube and you'll find singers barely in their 20s commenting under his videos, discovering him for the first time, trying to describe what it is about his voice that stops them in their tracks. They fumble for words, magnetic, perfect, soulful, masculine, devastating, because they're trying to name something that can't quite be named. Because what Dmitri left us wasn't just great performances, it was a standard, not just of vocal excellence, but of how to be an artist. And you know, I've made videos about a lot of singers, and they've all had their followings, their loyal fans, their passionate defenders. But no one has stirred quite the same level of adoration as Dmitri. The video I made about him last is still my most watched. And it's not because it's flashier or better produced than the others. It's because people love him, truly, deeply, enduringly. And here's something telling. My YouTube analytics reports that over 70% of the viewers for that video are female. And that doesn't surprise me, because Dmitri didn't just impress people, he moved them, he connected. And yes, part of it was the looks, the presence, the magnetism, but the larger part was the feeling. He gave you the impression that he was singing just for you, that he meant every note. That's why people still share his videos like heirlooms. That's why even young singers imitate him. That's why even now, when the opera world is full of stars and new voices, Dmitri still feels necessary. In a time when opera feels pressurized to apologize for itself, too grand, too emotional, too intense, he reminds us that this art form is supposed to be overwhelming, that beauty has value, that intensity matters, and that it's okay, more than okay, for a singer to be a star. He showed you that you could have all that presence and glamour and still be vulnerable, still be real, still be loved. And that's what he was, loved. Dmitri Hvorostovsky gave me a professional life. I don't say that lightly. I was a young tenor with a faulty technique, singing the wrong repertoire, forcing things, always on the edge of burnout. And then I saw Dmitri, and I heard that sound. That grounded, noble, unapologetically baritone sound, and I thought, oh, I don't have to fight anymore. He showed me it was okay to be something else, something truer. He gave me permission, and in doing that, he gave me a path, a place to belong, a way to sing. I'll never forget that. And I know I'm not alone. Dmitri helped a generation of singers believe in their voices, not because he preached, but because he embodied something. Art without an apology, emotion without fear, beauty without shame. And that's why we still watch him. That's why my first video about him is still my most watched. Because he touched people, because he stayed with people. You can find him now with just a few clicks, singing Cortigiani on trembling legs, years into his illness, still giving everything. Singing Ja vas lubelu with that softness in his eyes, and singing Cor ingrato like no one else ever could. Slow, indulgent, aching with betrayal and longing. Standing noble in Verdi, seductive in Tchaikovsky, defiant in every encore. You'll find him staring into the mirror backstage, adjusting his silver hair with that quiet smile. Still the star, still the man. And under those videos, you'll find comments, hundreds, thousands, people scrabbling for words worthy of him. A generation in awe, a legacy that refuses to dim. And let me say this clearly. I will only ever make videos and tributes to singers and music that I love. I've never understood why some people feel the need to be crude or dismissive about artists they don't enjoy. For me, these videos are a labor of love. I make them because I adore these singers, because their music changed me. And yes, my first video about Dmitri brought many people to this channel. Some of you might be a little confused now, seeing me rave about other voices, Burin, Corelli, Freni, Callas. But understand this. My heart and soul are capable of loving many singers, but no one will ever replace Dmitri. He is for me the one, the main man, the reason I sing. And if I can take some of the Dmitriati from the Golden Baritone group and beyond and help them discover other beautiful voices, that's a joy. Because the love we feel for them will never diminish our utter devotion to the memory and legacy of Dmitri Alexandrovich Hvorostovsky. He will always remain a vocal god, singing not from beyond the grave, but like Corelli from the peaks of Mount Olympus, reminding us that every now and then, once in a generation, a voice appears that goes beyond what we expect, a voice that renders us speechless in its sheer astonishment. For that, we'll always be grateful. The looks, the emotion, the power, the voice. Thank you once again, Dmitri. I will be back with many, many more videos about our hero.
Для гостя райской стороны тебя я, вольный сын эфира, возьму в надсветные края, и будешь ты царицей ты царицей мира. Подруга